I was picking my friend up from the airport, and I know he's going through a lot. His world is basically crumbling. Lost his job, his bills are stacking, he's spiraling. And his biggest concern out of all of this is that he feels like his long-term girlfriend is going to leave him because he's always in a rough situation, and she already showed signs that she really can't take it anymore. So on the ride back home to his house or whatever, I was listening to him vent about everything. And usually I'm not the type of person to give feedback because I don't like when people do it to me when I'm ranting. Like, let me complain, bro. I didn't ask for your opinion. But for some reason, something had crossed my mind. And I guess it was the right moment to say something back to him after all. Early on, when I met this guy for the first time, right? His girlfriend is like a super Christian, right? She's all, she's very, it's hard to explain a super Christian without being offensive, right? But she's super Christian, and she drags him to church every Sunday. So he invited me to church one time, and I went with him very early on, right? This was like 2 years ago. So after listening to him vent about his problems in the car, about his life, I said to him, bro, in the book of Genesis, God didn't panic or freak out over the void. God took it as an opportunity to create structure. If you hypothetically believe in the Big Bang, it wasn't just some emotional outburst without a blueprint. What I'm trying to say is that you're diving into a panic or spiraling right now without a plan. And that is ultimately going to be the true self-sabotage in your relationship and in your life. And it was really silent in the car after I said that. I actually looked at him a few times while I was driving because I was worried I offended him or said something wrong. And I could tell he was thinking though. And he just says, I don't know what to do though. And I was like, well, you're more concerned about your relationship than the fact that you lost your job and you can't pay your bills. That isn't necessarily a bad thing because you clearly value your loved one more than your financial stability, I guess. You feel she's irreplaceable. A job is replaceable. You know what I'm saying? Money comes and goes, but you feel like your girl is irreplaceable. But check this out. Look, if I drop you home right now and you go, babe, I just lost my job. I don't know what to do. I can't pay the bills. Everything's going to fall apart. If you say that versus, babe, I just lost my job, but I planned out how I'm going to handle the situation because I spoke to a few people and everything is going to get back on its feet. We're going to experience a rough patch right now. Which sounds more safe to her? Which sounds better? You're going to make your lady know that not only are you being vulnerable with her, because shorty's like that, but you're still a beacon of safety and security. Forget about your shorty for a moment here. If you only show emotion without action, you completely destroy trust in yourself and others. Why would anyone trust you or respect you if you only show vulnerability minus the heroism? And I sort of wrapped it up like this. And this is why I bring up the whole church thing, by the way, and his Christian girlfriend. I remember when we went to church with your girlfriend, and the lesson or scripture we were talking about that day was about Job, right? And for those listening who don't know that Bible story, God and the devil basically tortured this poor guy and take away all his possessions and his family. And they do it to test him, right? God gave Satan permission to destroy Job's life, to quote, test him, put him through a trial, right? Let's not even get it. I made a whole video about that at one point. I don't want anyone. Anyway, so that's the long story short. Okay. God and Satan basically worked together to torture some poor guy, right? Anyway, I was telling him like, so when Job was suffering because of what life was giving to him, he didn't just curl up and cry. He demanded answers. He didn't passively submit to his problems and his life. He challenged them. That's what you need to do. It's okay to cry or go through what you're going through. It happens. But what's the plan now? And he's like, Andre, you're right. And then we discussed some solutions in the car for the rest of the ride. And I don't want to put his business out there, but we did find a few solutions that could work. It's just a matter of doing it. That's the thing. He just needs to do it. He knew the solutions to his problems right now. It's just, you got to do it. Stop crying about this, bro. You in a ball right now, curling up, crying in the car, bro. Like, do it now. Okay. So what are you doing, bro? So, and also present yourself like that to your shorty when you get home. Okay. I think sometimes we don't analyze how we handle ourselves in a panic. There's like two categories of people who panic, right? And from my observation, at least, there's the category where people just scream and run in circles, tripping over their own shoelaces, figuratively and literally. And then there's people where, when they're in a panic, they look for an escape plan. Look, it's okay and normal to cry and panic, such is life. But that goes down the rabbit hole of duality. Being vulnerable doesn't mean you give up on your security. I would say vulnerability and security is like yin and yang, right? Like, I use that example of the Big Bang or the Book of Genesis, because imagine if life was created with no structure. Everything from the deepest scientific and mathematical endpoints of life is very structured. Life is structurally mathematical and scientific, hence why life works how it works. If it was just chaos everywhere and just, like I said, an emotional outburst, it wouldn't work. Aristotle even said, virtue is the golden mean between two vices, the one of excess and the other of deficiency. What does this mean? How I interpret it, at least. Vulnerability and excess is weakness. But if you work on resolving that and tampering it, it's strength. Does this make sense? So he feels like his girl is going to leave him because I feel he doesn't want his girl to think he's unsafe, right? And he's weak. Because just panicking makes you look unsafe and weak. That's why I told him, yo, be open. Don't hide it. Don't lie. Being vulnerable is part of being a man, dude. Like, for real, like, people act like you can't show vulnerability to women because that makes you you don't look like a man if you do that. You make your girl gonna think you weak. Yeah, you look weak when you hide it from her. You look weak when you just show it and then you just don't say, okay, what's next? Like, you got to show that you're correcting yourself and taking ownership of your misfortunes. It's not even just about women wanting to feel safe and secure about their partner, or around their partner, rather. It's about owning the situation that you're in. And we all need to do that, because I don't always do that. I've been working on it a lot. But, sometimes, like, I'll just be sad and I'll just be sad. That's it. I'll be sad, never solve the problem, right? Or I'll solve it way later. And here's the thing, too. I'm going to get back to that in a second. But there's also toxic positivity. And I think I spoke about this in the older video, but that's always a red flag to me. When someone's like overly positive, something's wrong with them, in my opinion. Like, I immediately, like, I put a shield up a little bit, because it's like some people, they're overly positive throughout the fire, right? And they're like in an endless therapy cycle, like #positivity, like those type of people, but they take no action in life. Those type of people, like, that's the where I put the shield. Like, okay, why are you so happy and you're in a middle of like a tragic situation, but you're taking no action? Or what are you doing? Or like something, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're like detaching or disassociating or something. Like, acknowledge your emotions, assess the damage, brainstorm any fixes or ideas, then execute. Boom. Be sad, be depressed if you need be, but strategize what to do next. And it's not something that comes immediately. Like I was mentioning, I've been through my own slopes where I'll be sad or whatever for weeks to a month. And it's harder to find a plan through that, right? But eventually you're going to need to. Otherwise, you're going to disassociate or detach and end up with that toxic positivity, right? Or you're just going to continue to be miserable. And that's also a thing too, and that's when I mentioned to him, like, the self-sabotage is just going to keep destroying things. Like, yeah, honestly, your girl is going to leave you if you just show that, you're constantly in a self-sabotage. And so now she's got to basically take care of you at this point. It's like, bruh, this is just my perspective on it. Hopefully this makes sense. Do y'all agree or disagree? Let me know down below. This episode is found on Spotify and YouTube. I'm out.